Hello everybody, I'm Conquering History Games, and welcome back to part 4 of my Kasa Free State campaign here in Hearts of Iron 4, Equestria at War. Just going to modify this a little bit. Okay, and let's keep going with this election. Elechao, or Sao, I don't know. The boycott! As the candidates made their way to Fireport, that's over here, we haven't been to this area yet, Kasa's westernmost port and home to the biggest Griffisian community in the country, they were immediately met by a controversy that was sure to be the public square's debate main topic. The controversy revolved around accusations made by Kasan native Griffisians that a great deal of products sold in Griffisian-owned stores in the city are actually products produced and sold by the hated Griffische Südkontinent Gesellschaft. Such accusations are not casual ones, as the Griffsud GmbH is well known to use less than ethical methods to produce their goods. I am really starting to think that I probably should have played the Free Towns of Gryphus before I did this. There's a lot going on over here, too. Anyway. Accusations have caused protests in front of the stores and a call to boycott of said stores and their products, but stop short of violent clashes. Several store owners are accusing Kasan radicals of needlessly stoking the fire and that the accusations are discriminatory lies. During the debate, each candidate made clear their position regarding the matter. Yurmthu was the first to speak, praising the community for taking such a difficult matter into their own hooves and claws and doing it in a peaceful fashion. She advised the community to support instead local products from farmers and craft creatures of the region and called for national and regional quote-unquote morality testing regarding the conditions in which products are made. Pasarina spoke next and advised that this was a perfect example of the need for Kasa to do better and preemptively screen any companies doing business on their territories. However, he called the locals to remain open for dialogue with the store owners to clear any misunderstandings and make them part of the solution. Altukeksa pushed back against that notion, calling the protesters lovers of freedom. She warned that only such constant vigilance could prevent the greedy and amoral Griffisian strand of capitalism to slither its way into Kasa. Lua Ramedi concluded the exchange by supporting the idea of a boycott as a valid and lawful method of protest, but urged the protesters to maintain their choice of peaceful action. He also called for a committee to investigate the claims and take legal action against those store owners who violated Kasa's ban on slave-made products. Okay, Altukeksa, as usual. Piccolini is now the Prime Minister. Oh, got a little bit of political power. Do we maybe want to improve the workers' Maybe. Or do we want to save up and... you know what? Let's just not do anything until the election's over, because then I'll get a new tree, I'm sure. The Volunteers! Today, a striking image made the front page of many newspapers in Kasa after a recruitment office for the military became a scene of a party. While Kasans have never been shy about joining those who would protect them from foreign threats, those who lived around the recruitment centers had seen something change in recent weeks. Hundreds of young creatures flocked there to enlist themselves or become reservists. And now, one office in Seguro had seen such a line of would-be volunteers that they had to leave me and me hanging at the end of the day. And those youngsters decided to wait by organizing a party till the day after. They had scattered to bring back food, instruments, and cheap alcohol. And while they were certainly showing off the vigor of youth, they may regret it in the morning, as being hungover hardly helps one perform well during a physical test. The journalists visited the scene and asked the partying patriots about the reasons. While all the usual sayings of one joining the military were widely repeated, many of them spoke of being inspired by Altukeksa. To them, it was as if Kasa had become complacent and was no longer aware of the importance of fighting for one's freedom. They wanted to fight tyranny wherever it was, to be heroes just like Akeku or the Ebiron heroes, and most importantly, to do their duty as Kasans. Viva Kasa! Good, this bodes well. We're going to need a strong military. I just feel so bad about all the foot soldiers we'll have to kill along the way. Alright, into Barad. When the ship brings the candidate from Fireport to Offercliff, so that's over here, or Rotorno, as the Baridian refugees like to call it, there was a sense of unease among most of them. That town and its massive refugee camps had been the greatest failure of their early days in Mansu Erba's government. It was easy to forget what the Zatius, the troubles, meant back in Seguro, but when coming here, it all made sense. In this day of clear weather, you could see the Baradian mountain range in the distance, and the ominous and unnatural clouds looming over it. When the debate started, the very first question from the public was about the recent arrest of a group of parliamentary griffins who sought to cross the border. I just realized I haven't been pausing between each election thing. Whatever. Was a recent arrest of a group of paramilitary griffins who sought to cross the border into Barad in an attempt to free it themselves. It had happened many times, and Mansu Erba had always condemned it. But now they all had to explain themselves on the matter. Altu's Keksa, who had no history with Barad or the Troubles, spoke first. In a fiery speech, she called the Baradian overlords the worst tyrants of all, the most abject failure of magic use. She called for the volunteers to be released, but advised them to have just a little bit of patience. She made no mystery of her intention to use military force to put a final end to the Barad crisis. Eramathu, a Baradian native, spoke next. She didn't use a bellicose language, but said that the end of the Baradian tragedy was long overdue, and that she would not hesitate when it comes to it. She called for a conditional release of the volunteers and warned them not to take individual actions, as the Baradian mages were not a threat to take lightly. There were already too many graves showing that overconfidence is an insidious killer. Lua Ramadi chastised the volunteers, calling such hasty actions harmful for themselves, for their cause, and even for Kasa as a whole, as it could mean retaliation and even war with Vittenland, as legally, Barad was still Vittenlandic territory. Pasarina ended the discussion by saying that he sympathized with the volunteers and called for their release. However, he strongly warned them to reconsider their life choices, rather than follow their youthful urges for revenge. He himself found himself while serving in the Navy and said that maybe enlisting in the local militia would be the best way to find their purpose. Nice art, just loading that double barrel, ready for a little boosh, suck on that Barad. Anyway, so Altukeksa has her hoof on Kasa's pulse. Lua emerges from the fray. Are you freaking kidding me? Did he just win? Oh no, it's just going to increase his popularity. Okay. He's like, what's the point of me picking the things if it's RNG? But no. For weeks now, the atmosphere in Kasa was burning with enthusiasm. Each day, the fiery speech of Altukeksa captured the mind of many and animated discussions around the dinner table. There was outrage. There was a desire to do more, much more. To finally roar instead of moping around and listening to the endless chatter. But to some, all this passion, all this energy, didn't feel empowering. It felt dangerous. Altukeksa was for sure right in reminding everyone of the evils of tyranny and slavery, but was it the correct way? Surely not all of the continent was that bad. Kasa was not alone, after all. Some countries in the Riverlands were alright, and there was Asterion. What is Asterion right now? They are Harmony Party. We'll see how long that lasts. Heck, wasn't that Khmersky fellow still trying to fight for democracy in those faraway places? That's over here. He's not aligned at the moment. Knowing that, was it so wise to do so much saber rattling? They were but a small country after all. To all those skeptics, it felt as if there was a need for cooler heads to prevail. Someone who knew what they were talking about. Someone who would seek other venues than war if there was a way, no matter the difficulties. Eramathu had her heart in the right place, sure, but she too seemed placed... Okay, this is another typo. She seemed to place passion over reason. As for Pasarina, he was fine? But no, they trusted Lua Ramadi. He had followed Mansu Erba all those years, and when he spoke, he actually went into details of every matter. No vagueness and no slogans, but real, actual ideas. Experience matters. Okay. We'll see. These Asterians and such claim their Harmony Party. And oh, look at that, the River Coalition just went socialist. They've gone communist under Nova World. I've actually never seen this. Wasn't the leader supposed to be Caramel Hayes or something? A mixture of market socialism, gradualism, and internationalism, she finally entered politics to turn her socialist dreams into a reality. Guaranteeing the independence of water towns. Has Watertown's got a tree yet? I don't think so. Yeah. What's going on here? We've got Westerly Leeward, the dictator in charge of Lake City. What else have we got out here? Whoa. Non-aligned. Supremacy Diamond Mountain. I don't know about all this. this so-called free coalition that deals with slavers and tyrants. The role of the Legion. Even for the candidates for first commander, traveling to Eberkurin, so this is on the border with Austerland here, it's right there, was not the easiest of tasks. No wonder it had dissuaded many in Austerland to attempt an invasion, with such a city to overcome or leave in their back. It was true that Aberkurnig was not the richest of cities, nor the most beautiful, but from its wall you could see Austerland. For the many free deers living in the cities, such a sight was a constant reminder that the land of their personal Tartarus was still there, still enforcing slavery and pain for so many. The city was not just the home of many refugees brought by the Scapatoria program, it was also proportionally the most common city of origin for those serving under Kasa's flag. Here was a city where they understood the meaning of dying for the cause. When the debate began in the public square, many in attendance were legionnaires and militia creatures allowed to participate. Of course, this led much of the debate to be about military matters, such as the role and future of the Kasan Foreign Legion. Pasarina spoke first and lauded the Legion for its service. He called for an expansion of the Legion as a great way to cultivate the military relationship between Macawia and Kasa, and called the Kasan exemplary for helping to make this great collaboration so successful. Lua Remedi followed suit by calling for a continuation of the current situation and expanding both forces in accordance both to the level of threat and to the growth of the country. He argued that the Kasan model worked well and was in no need of radical change. Altukeksa criticized them both, emphasizing the need to drastically expand the Kasan military so that it would be able to stand and defend itself without any need for foreign help. Yurmthu finally argued that the Legion ought to be integrated into a unified Kasan military to better emphasize the Kasan military independence. However, the regiments of the Foreign Legion would still remain a distinct force to account for all the special ways in which it differed from the Kasan-born units. Say Altukeksa once again. Now the good news is we would definitely destroy Barad if we could attack them. So we probably want to do that early, you see. But there is a good point, the whole Vittenland coming south thing. Some sort of border skirmish going on as well. By the way, the Lincoln Douglas debates, I think I mentioned them in the last episode. For those of you who don't know, they were very different from how debates are now, where it's kind of you talk for a few minutes, you talk for a few minutes, you talk for a few minutes. Back then, the debates were 3 hours long, and one person would speak for an hour. Then the second person, between Lincoln and Douglas, would speak for an hour and a half, and then the first person gets 30 minutes to respond. Yeah. The journey back to Seguro was an easy one for the candidates. After a full tour of the country, they were now back in the capital. And yet, despite some of the dust of the Wingalak strike settling, they were still welcomed by a population annoyed by yet another scandal, and what had proved to be a sad year for the Kasan capital. I was going to say, it's like, geez, another one? Well, it had always been an open secret that finding proper housing in Seguro was a difficult business, as the city seemed to be incapable of doing anything but grow at neck-breaking pace, and yet every creature thought it wasn't all that bad. And then, earlier in the month, a family of 7 and several bystanders were killed or injured by the explosion of a cramped house due to a gas leak. After inspection of the local firefighters and investigation by journalists, activists, and the police, many reports were produced, and it painted a story far worse than many imagined. Landlords, the now infamous sleep merchants, had built thousands of unsanitary and shoddy housing units and were cramming them with poor creatures who had little alternative due to the housing shortage. And on top of that, the average rent for those accommodations, barely above those of a slave, was nothing short but extortion. And all of that in the heart of Seguro. When the matter was brought to the public square debate, Lua Ramadi was the first to speak. Barely concealing his anger, he called for a citywide public inquiry and said that harsh sentences and fines should be given to any of those who had profited from lax enforcement of the housing regulation, up to full expropriation and confiscation of properties that would be refurbished by the state. Ermithu in turn condemned these sleep merchants, but considered that it really was a symptom of a larger problem, which was the mass immigration from destitute rural communities. Only by supporting ailing townships could the burden of Seguro be eased. Pasarina, for his part, called for an increase of the house construction budget and a full reform of the housing code with a new and modernized city plan and firm safety laws. Finally, Altu Kexa decried the sleep merchants as I've never heard that term, by the way. I dig that. Sleep merchants. That's what I'll call my landlords next time I'm pissed at them. You sleep merchant. Decried the sleep merchants as exploiters, no better than slave owners, and called for them to be tried. She then called for civilizational rejuvenation throughout Kasa and called for the masses to look back to the countryside as a place they can live in as their own masters with their own lands. Yeah, this kind of reminds me of several years ago. Well, it's ongoing, but there's a lot of really bad landlords in El Paso and downtown. A few years ago, there was the revelation of just the horrible conditions that were in total violation of city codes that the downtown landlords were letting people live in, and so everyone was like, okay, so they're going to go to jail now, right? And then the city just said, no, they just got to, no, but here's what we're going to do to pressure them. We're going to have them pay a fine by this time if they don't change things. And so they just didn't, and they just paid the fine, which was, nothing. So, still, because a lot of those people, they're just sitting on these, like, really crappy places that they've made crappy. Because some people say, it's like, oh, we need to tear down these horrible apartments and horrible housings downtown. It's like, well, they're horrible because the people there are violating city code. So why don't you enforce it? But they basically just buy those properties because it's in flux right now. But there's plans to build an arena downtown. Which that's a whole long story about that arena, but basically it was the long story short, it was something that El Pasoans voted for, but they were voting for some other stuff, a lot of other things, and they kind of just backdoored it in. Long story short, anyway, and so they're just waiting for that arena to get finally approved, and then they're going to sell those properties for a whole lot of money. So they don't really care about paying tiny fines in the meantime because they're going to make a lot more money back when the arena gets started. Okay, back to the game. Instead of my shitty hometown, excuse me for cursing, the Scapatoria funding. For the very last debate of the campaign, the candidates traveled back to where it all began, in Ilha Roca. After all, see, now it's spelled wrong again. This is probably supposed to say Rosca. Guys, Equestria War Team, if you're watching this, I love the stuff. I think the world building is great, but just maybe one more run through on some of this, stuff. Just get an editor. After all the controversies and agitation that they saw throughout the campaign, it was good to see the Kasan historical capital doing well and feeling as lively as ever. It can make one wonder if any of them could really help Kasa thrive enough that every city could feel like Ilha Rosca did. But this was no time for quiet pondering. It was time to debate. The debate went quite well and finally centered around the matter of the Scapatoria program, one of Kasa's biggest sources of pride. Upon being asked about what they would do regarding it, each candidate was happy to oblige. However, they were also asked about the diplomatic pressure that were done by that there foreign power regarding that program. Pasarina spoke first and passionately about his own service in the Navy and argued that the future of the program would be at sea, where much of the slave trade still occurred. He spoke of the terrible ripple effects of the rebirth of Hawklandish piracy and how pirates from many Griffonian and Ziprican nations had begun to engage in slavery more and more. No more Deva, he concluded. Lua followed by supporting tying the Scapatoria funding to a percentage of the state income, rather than a fixed budget. He also vowed to push back against any pressure and instead pressure any foreign partners to abolish slavery on their own before any talks could happen. Ermathu, for her part, argued that while the Scapatoria program was important and necessary, any progress it was doing was not compared to the constant stream of misery caused by the Barad rogue regime. She argued for a temporary reallocation of resources towards the singular goal of ending the magocracy and therefore finally put an end to the troubles. Altu Kexa spoke last and denounced in decidedly undiplomatic language the oppressive regimes of Barad and Asterland, imploring that under no circumstances should there be any shaking of hooves with these oppressors. Or any. Altu Kexa is at her best near the end of the show. So, alright, it sounds like Ermathu and Altu Kexa, both of them would lead to war with Barad. But we're still going to go with Keksu. Oh gosh, I'm so excited. It's because I did Darkwing. Go check out my Darkwing campaign in Stalingrad. Funny secret events happen. Great Kakaku Dories. But I just get worried that, because I think they're all Harmony candidates from what I saw on the wiki, but I'm just so nervous about I don't know, she gets out of control and becomes supremacist or something. Okay, that's it. We're done. We're done with the election stuff. We should easily win this. Altu Kexa, that is. Tallying the votes. It had been a long and interesting campaign for all in Kasa. There had been so many high moments, even if they were marred in controversy or tragedy. It was really the first time that they all got to vote in a way that would be so determinant in the choice for first commander. Never before had the electoral system and timing of change in leadership allowed for such a thing to occur. Some nostalgic were not all that happy about it, but to many it was endearing. A new way of doing things, and for the one who would take the mantle of first commander, it would be something to ponder upon. In the end, the campaign ended like all others, as every Kasan went and voted for their representatives to the council. But even when the results were announced, everyone knew that it wasn't over yet, as those councilors had now to vote on their choice for first commander. There was some certitude about the vote of some of them, but you could never truly be sure until the fateful vote at the Seguro Council. And the result is the rhetorical shift. In a narrow majority vote, the Council of Kasa nominated Altu Kexa as the 8th first commander of the Kasa Free State. The vote was difficult due to a vocal minority of councillors vehemently opposing the punitive head of state. Despite their attempts at claiming the electoral campaign as non-binding, the council eventually voted to follow the democratic choice. A few councillors still, that kind of reminds me of how like Puerto Rico constantly does these resolutions to become the 51st state, but they're completely non-binding. They just, it means nothing. So, for good or for ill. So, despite their attempts at the democratic choice, a few councillors still protested the election by walking out as the famed poetress swore her oath before taking her seat, and the traditional wicker chair left vacant since the resignation of Mansu Erba. Kexa's speech was long and fiery, yet in the end, it was an uncharacteristically solemn Kexa who pronounced these words. In this day, Kasa has made a fateful choice. The choice of maintaining its legacy, a legacy of the most righteous and arduous cause of all, the cause of liberty and abolitionism. I applaud you all, even the skeptics we suffered today, for allowing yourselves to choose such a mission over the sweet yet superfluous comfort of indifference. I will not lie. The task ahead will not be one of laughter, but I promise you that when all is said and done, and when I'll leave this wicker chair in my dying breath, we will have been paid in full, in knowing that we stood true to those who revolted on the Dava, to those who stood against the most dire of odds in the hope of liberty. I see many within this venerable house who look away in fear. To those I say this: do not look away, citizens of Kasa, for we are walking the path set for us by the likes of Akeku and Sonora. Find the strength in your soul and stand proud as Kassans to an awoken Kasa. This will load the new focus tree. Okay, we're set. We're good. We have the so-called El Saponi, and then I think this is just gonna, the bio is the same as we saw before. Mobilization speed plus 5%, daily political power cost minus 0.10. I think the wiki shows what the other ones do. I guess I'll pull that up just for anybody who's curious. So if I had gone with Lua Ramadi, his effect would have been political power gain plus 10%, political advisor cost minus 25%. So in terms of political power, he would have been very strong. If I had gone with Pasarina, factory output would have increased by 2.5%, as well as dockyard output, and our production efficiency cap would have gone up by 5%. And then finally, if I had gone with Ermathu, non-core pony power would have gone up by 5%, recruitable population factor plus 5%, and stability plus 10%. So that was kind of interesting. So it might be argued that Altu Kexa has the weakest effect of them all, but she has the strongest conviction. Her resolve has never been stronger. Alright, so we have the new tree, yes? Oh boy. So prepare the armed forces. We got air and sea here, and that's it? There's nothing political? Wow, just straight military. Oh no, here we go. Altu Kexa's passion. Oh, this is something we could do very quickly. Complete this focus will bypass the focus on the other side. Huh. Okay, so it's basically, do I want stability or political power? I guess I could increase my stability anytime I want by improving the workers' conditions. The increase in harmony is kind of nice too. Completing this focus will do on the other side? Okay, so I guess we could zigzag, do different things. What's this? Communism gets more strong. Cooperate or else. Everyone must do their part. Donations from the affluent. It's just temporary. Interesting. So that's where we're going to be able to deal with the troubles, which are really, really not good. Nos causa. Macauia will support us by raising a fresh division. Is this freaking muffins, derp face? Liberté su Barad. Put the word out. Any refugee who wishes to return home are encouraged to enlist. We'll make sure the former serfs are trained and be able to take back their homes from the oppressors. You know, this reminds me of a book. Gosh, I wish I could remember what it was called, but it was basically a series of interviews and writings from Jewish refugees from Nazi Germany who ended up enlisting in foreign armies and then returning to Germany. Really, really interesting. Henry Kissinger was one of them, interestingly enough. I don't think I had known that his family had fled Germany before I read that book. But, it was like, it definitely was, it was showing the whole, it was a really interesting primary source because it showed like all of their perspectives. So, like you had, okay, so things are going to get kind of dark here for a minute. So like Henry Kissinger, he was just talking about the destruction that happened in Germany, and he was just really sad about it all, just what had happened to the country. But then you had some who were like, they talked about German citizens would come crying up to them. He was in the American Army, I think. And not Henry Kissinger, this was a different guy. He was in the American... Well, Henry Kissinger was also in the American... Anyway, and then like, they'd hear about... the rapes that had gone on in East Germany, and then he was like, yeah, as if that wasn't going on in the Soviet Union. Turn around is fair play, pretty much. Obviously, it's a very serious and harsh book, but it was very interesting. I wish I could, let me look that up. Jewish Germans who joined American Army book. I don't know. I'll kind of work from there. I'll look it up on my own time. I'm probably not going to post it or anything. But anyway, back to work here. So what's our priority here? The outdated military formations really stinks because we can't do anything with our units. So maybe that's actually supposed to be my first priority. So how do I get rid of that? Proclaim Casa Gardi de Nacional. Completing this focus unlocks unit training and template modifying. Upon completing this... focus, you will receive all bonuses selected in previous focuses. Not completed focuses will be blocked. Well, that doesn't really matter because it's a straight line, right? This will unlock special recruitment decisions. It's going to give me army experience. And then there's the Universidad de Defensa Nacional, the National Defense University. Land doctrine bonuses. Okay, so I think this is the way we're going to go because it's also going to give us a 4th research slot, which I could really use. I don't think the air and the sea is we're gonna work on that anytime soon. Yeah, not a priority. Having said that, I think we're gonna get to ignore the naive real quick because it's just 15 days. These older politicians are a spineless and pathetic lot, but you can bet before Alta's through. Somehow I'll create freedom out of you. Meeting Barad. Anyway, so spineless, pathetic lot. Altu does not have the precious commodity of time to tend to their ridiculous needs. We have a war to plan, people to liberate. She will not offer them her attention. So, yeah, harmony and stability we can do on our own time in the long term. We don't need focuses for that. That's why we have improving the workers' conditions. That's why we have, other things as well. Oh yeah, do I want to trade with Skyfall? Ooh, minus 4% consumer good factories. I thought it was just minus 2. What kind of government do they have? It's non-aligned, isn't it? I'll think about it. What's the point of having with the consumer factories being up? We gotta do something about these troubles, though. We can't trade, we can't build anything. This just sucks right now. But we're gonna start building up our army. We can at least get a couple of units out, maybe 1 or 2. We've got to fill the border. All right, I'm gonna read this and we'll call it a day. The Legend of Texoit. This week, a new novel hits the shelves in Kasa's bookshops. Alisha Saminska, an exiled Griffius poet living in Fireport, tells the tale of Texoit, a Griffin Cossack living during the era of the founding of the Free Cities. The opening of the book reads like a series of short stories about Texoit's daring adventures, the meeting of a whole gallery of plucky characters, and ties into some Griffusian folktales. The stories do build up to something greater as the threat of an alliance between a Griffin warlord and the Prince of Saida looms. The final short story climax is as a flying race. Texoit badly loses, but finally finds the strength to make one last push. Speeding up exponentially, he finally hits a critical speed, causing an explosion of light and projecting a rainbow ring over Tiefbrunnen. A sonic rainbow. The rainbow wave was able to be seen from all corners of Gryphus. So that's like how, well, should I spoil the show? Well, for those of you who don't know, yeah, it's not a big deal. It turns out, I think that like everybody in all the main characters in the My Little Pony show, they all got their cutie mark when Rainbow Dash, best pony, although I haven't seen the last season and Fluttershy is starting to win me over. She does a Sonic Rainbow, and like just that event is connected to all of them getting their cutie marks at the same time. Let's see. So continues the story as a more serious political tale, but still full of humor, as Texoit finds himself the unlikely leader of the Free Cities in their struggle against the Prince of Saida and his Griffian goons. Eventually he overcomes them, defeats them at a decisive battle in Camafue. The warlord is vanquished, but the Prince of Saida flees. Texoit chases him right to Salt Island, where he finally catches the evil prince to promptly give his bottom a good, literal kicking. The novel ends on a sad but hopeful note. It explained that the old Texoit died happily with his friends, and that as soon as he died, the spirit of alliance among the Free Cities quickly died. Yet, his spirit lived on as his friends promised one another that he would remain in their heart, just as the spirit of friendship would endure in the heart of the Griffusians. Only once that spirit triumphed would Gryffus be truly free and peaceful again. The book is already a smash hit, despite some criticism over its historicity and plot points being borrowed from a well-known tale, such as his flying maneuver. Yet the Griffusian exiles absolutely adore it, considering how rarely native figures are mentioned in any media, let alone focusing on them. An entertaining read. That reminds me, I still haven't played, this has the mini names. This, the Cossack kingdom over here. It's like supposed to be Ukraine or something, I think. Yeah. They're supposed to have quite a few different trees. Like, I think this is one of them, but they got more. It's good. It really does feel good to be back in Equestria at war, man. Feels good. Feels good. All right, so we're done with that. We're done. We're ignoring the naive little punks. Let us now rush for that slot. The War of. Well, hold on. Let's do this. And Theorist. We have to either organize the defense or proclaim the army, or do the Great Reorganization. So coming down here. Once we're down here, we could pick up Theorist, which I think I'm going to want to do. Again, it looks like our only two choices are Grand Battle Plan or Superior Firepower. Kind of leaning Grand Battle Plan. The entrenchment bonus, I think, is going to do us a lot of good. So how about in the meantime, what do we want to do? What's going to help us right now? State Investor, no. Silent Work Deer could be good, especially because we're dealing with the troubles. Could be the best long term. Yeah, Karl Steinar, the Work Deer. See, I'm building a coalition government, multiple species. Okay. Summer Sun Celebration. Crystal Fair is happening. So for a lot of the world, they're just kind of barely getting to some of their stuff. Farbrook has fallen to Hermain Gering. Truly, there is no freedom in the world but Kasa. We must save them. Shide Spark is running fir trees, Magocracy. Horrible. Horrible! You absolutely hate to see it. So, Barad has not generated any tension, unfortunately. So we can't take the fight to them. Where do we attack Barad? Is there an event here? To arms, Kasa, liberate Barad from... Oh, so I have to go down the political tree to get there. Collating this focus will bypass on the other side. Get an attack bonus to the innocent in Barad. Kasa unaided partisans. I like that. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I said I was gonna end it, and we are. So in the next episode, I guess we're gonna go and get that research slot. On the other hand, right now, the Barad is extremely weak. They can't even cover their border, and they might have 16 divisions. I kind of doubt it, but it looks like they're kind of wrapped up in this border war anyway. So we could probably rush through and grab their capital very, very quickly. And that would, that's where most of their industry and stuff is. So we could very easily defeat them afterwards, I think. Of course, we've got holes in our line as well, but I'm smarter than AI. She meh. But for real, so it's entirely possible that I might just rush down here as quickly as possible. All of these focuses take a relatively short amount of time. Actually, the ones on the left do not. The left ones are all 60 days. These are 15 or... Yeah, these are all 15. So, I don't know. There's pros and cons. Do I want a stronger army and attack later, or attack them now and see if we can beat them? We're going to have to figure that out in the next episode. So I'm Conquering History Games, and I will see you then. Have a great one.